Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Real Talk, Real Stories. If you've been wondering why we're a few minutes late, it might have been because I thought we were live and we've had half our discussion already. So apologies. It shows that no matter where you are in our trade, technology can bite you no matter where you are. So we're live again. I can see the live button. We know we are live this time. So welcome everyone. My name is Shayoni Lynn. I'm one of the co-founders of Asian Communications Network. I am also the CEO and founder of a behavioral science advisory called Lynn. I'm delighted to be here today with Vishnee Sauntoo, who is one of our founding circle members. And I'm going to welcome you again, Vishnee. Welcome to Real Talk, Real Stories.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Vishnee, I know we've done this before, but would love for you to introduce yourself and tell our viewers a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Vishnee, and I've been in the not-for-profit communications world for over 20 years now. So working for places like Save the Children, Age International, the British Heart Foundation. And now I've gone out on my own as a communications consultant.
Amazing. And Vishnee, for people who might not know your story, how would you describe your career journey so far? Perhaps in a couple of sentences?
Yeah, it's been an interesting one. I started off with a degree in biotechnology and genetics and was going down the science route, and then suddenly realized that actually I want to do more. And communications was my way. So science communication is where I ended up, and then fell into the kind of charity sector.
And what drew you into this wonderful creative world of communications? You know, how did you go from the lab to the
Yeah.
world of press releases?
I think I was a really good communicator. I was someone who could explain things, and I realized that there was an awful lot of complex information in science and health, and people didn't understand it. And if you're either having treatment or something, you needed to understand it properly. And I felt that they needed someone who could talk in plain English to do that. So I
Yeah.
went from sort of stem cell research all the way to heart health, and then international development.
Wow, what a journey. And when you look back, Vishnee, what were those early moments that shaped how you show up at work?
I think it's about uh, gaining trust and being professional. I was always very good at talking to people and talking to the chair or the CEO. I was quite curious. I
Mm.
didn't mind who I talked to. I wasn't about hierarchy. And so I could have really honest conversations with people. When you're advising on PR, it's not about what they want to hear, it's what you need them to hear from you. So it was always about advising, giving them guidance, telling them what will happen, if they decided on a particular thing.
That's so important. And I think, curiosity is so important in our trade. Um, did you ever feel like you had to adapt or code switch to fit in? And if you did, what impact did that have on you?
At the beginning, before I started, I worked with my dad at his firm, a bit of a nepo baby, I suppose. But in school holidays, I got to work in his office, and the staff there decided they wanted to call me Vicky and not Vishnee, and I was
Oh,
16, so I was a bit like, okay, I'm not gonna say anything, and they did
yeah,
that.
just go with the
And
flow.
then, yeah, and then after that, I decided never would I ever do that or shorten my name. So
Yeah.
after that experience, I was like, no, it's Vishnee. And I haven't needed to code switch. I mean, I guess my upbringing was quite professional anyway. But and where I'm from, kind of thing, from North London, it was okay, it was right. But
Mm.
obviously there are instances where people don't understand your culture, or the question that one of my old bosses get asked me was, what do you read, Eastern Eye or the Asian Times? And I was like, neither. I read the Guardian. So it's just things like that people have this perception about you.
Yeah.
And I was very quite forward in correcting them.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? I have been called so many things from Siobhan to Sharon, and my favorite, Sean. Sean to someone who actually spoke to me and then called me Sean. And I didn't quite know how to respond to that. So the British in me was like, all right, we're just going to go with it. But yes, it's absolutely right to call it out. And yeah, I totally respect that. Vishnee, who or what inspired you most when you were starting out?
So I didn't have anyone who looked like me. And that in some way was my aspiration also to be that person. I had a great director of comms who took me under her wing, and she made me a press officer, trusted me, gave me autonomy. And actually, sometimes, I was flying very much and not knowing whether I could swim in that kind of jungle, I suppose. So she was someone I really respected, and then she took me on to another organization that she worked for. She could see something in me, I guess. But it wasn't an Asian person; it was an English woman, But I respected the fact that she could see that in me.
Yeah, and I think, allyship is so important. And there's so many in my life as well, so many leaders and colleagues from the white majority who've shown real allyship. And we mustn't ignore that. We must talk about it and make it much more widespread so more people can feel confident, psychologically safe to empower people like us. So, um, what is the boldest career move you've made, Vishni? And other than moving from the lab to the press room, and how did it change things for you?
I guess for me, it was always going to be, I'd stuck to kind of like the UK market and, kind of UK charities who only dealt in the UK. And then I decided that I wanted to go international and global. So moving from somewhere like the British Heart Foundation to Save the Children, where you were talking about really complex issues in different countries, we were doing humanitarian work, part of my job was content gathering. So I'd go to different countries, and learn about those countries as well and not take it for granted. And then I worked for a startup charity where I had to create teams in different countries around the world. And that for me was the biggest thing because I had to go there, I had to learn about their culture before I could say to them, okay, this is what the team looks like. And you had to respect actually their ways of working. And that was a huge lesson for me,
Wow,
definitely.
that is fascinating. So many questions. What was your favorite country that you went to and sort of built a team in?
Um, I'm not sure about favorite, but one of the most interesting was the
Mm.
Philippines.
Mm.
And such amazing people, really friendly, always said yes to everything. And
Mm.
I had to learn actually, yes didn't mean they would do it, they just
Mm.
wanted to please me. And
Yeah.
again, it was that culture thing. So, like, lovely place as well. But it was hard to kind of understand what they were thinking and wanted because they just wanted to also keep you happy. So we
Yeah.
had to have great conversations about how not to do that.
Wow, that is fascinating. Um, let's segue a little bit into how do you navigate your ambition and your cultural or your family expectations? Did that or has that shifted over time?
Yeah, when I was about 7 years old, I wanted to be an optician,
Oh.
and I did. Yeah, I did my GCSEs and my A levels to become an optician, and then at the end of my A levels, one of my subjects was biotechnology, and I was like, "Oh, this is really interesting.
Mm.
I want to do this." And my mum was furious with me, as all Asian mothers are.
Yeah.
She told a load of people that I was going to be an optician, and she was really upset. She goes, "I've told everybody," and I'm like, "Well, that's your problem, not mine." But my dad was great. My dad was, no, let's have a look at what this is because biotechnology
Yeah.
in those days was quite new. Nobody understood it. He was like, let's figure it out, and he was like, okay, sounds really interesting, go for it.
Yeah.
So actually they had my back. And
Yeah.
then when I went into the charity sector again, they couldn't quite see any, why I wanted to do this. And then they understood it. And then I started doing sort of media interviews and lots of work, and then they were really proud because I was on the BBC or I was, doing something, and they could then understand it. I think
Yeah.
that's quite difficult with parents. There's nothing tangible for them,
Yeah.
so that got them excited, I think,
Yeah.
as well. But no, they've been very supportive. They've never been uh, different. My husband also is really, really supportive of me when I decided I was going to be a consultant. Right, you're going to leave a job,
Mhm.
not have any money until you become a consultant and find some money. But he was really, again, supportive, and encouraging of that's what you want to do, go for it, go and do it.
That's so true. And I was saying this on a previous LinkedIn Live that despite the reputation of Asian parents, specifically, I think, well, all Asian parents, but also South Asian parents, their real interest and energy goes into sort of getting their kids into one of the sort of science disciplines or the legal field, right? And yes, there's an expectation, but I think, and the same happened with me. I think when you have that conversation, our parents always have our back and they always want the best for us. And my dad's an eye surgeon and he's got his surgery back in India. And his real, wish was that that would be his legacy and he would leave that to me and my brother and we'd be the next generation of doctors in the family. And that just didn't happen. And I know that's really hard, but he kind of got around to it and now they love it. Like they're constantly sharing all my stuff that I share on LinkedIn and getting all the kudos for having a child who's speaking publicly and on publications, etc. So they do come around. But to your point, I'm not sure they still understand what I really do. So I've tried to explain it, and especially trying to explain behavioral science and misinformation, tiny bit tricky, but they make every effort to understand, and I think that's what matters.
Absolutely.
So, right, what was the toughest moment in your career and what helped you get through it?
The toughest moment was a really toxic organization where I had the balance of an amazing team who actually, when I inherited them, were burnt out. And so I was helping and supporting them to do better. A year, over that year, we did a great job. And they were performing really high performing and we had a great relationship. My boss at the time, who wasn't a comms person, just to say, really didn't understand what we were doing or what I was doing, and that sort of typical kind of, I don't know what you do, so I'm going to micromanage you, was actually really hard. And it got to a point where if I didn't leave, she'd want to push me out. And but you know what? That was actually a good thing because it made me think ahead to my 5-year plan and what I wanted to do, which is a consultancy. So it made me realize that actually I do want to be my own boss. But what it did was actually bring your confidence down. So I've had to do a lot of work on my confidence and build that back up. As someone who's very confident naturally as a person, knowing that professionally, I had a bit of work to do. So I've worked really, really hard on that recently. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for your honesty. And it's so true. I mean, I've gone through a very similar experience. I think many of us have, certainly in our community, but I think also in the wider practice. We've all faced toxic bosses, micromanagers. We've all gone through it. But I think you're right. It does make you stronger. It does make you reflect on your priorities, on your future, and how you want to show up. And for me, I knew I didn't want to be that person. And that was a very clear role model I did not want to role model. So that helped me be the manager I wanted to be. I wished I had rather. And when was the first time you saw someone like you in leadership? We've talked about when you started out, you didn't see people like you. So when was the first time you saw someone like you in leadership and what impact did that have?
Yeah, I think I was probably a manager or head of comms by then, where I started being in the room, and it was mainly in international development where there were more different people. You could see that there was a tide of change. I'd worked for the first 10 years and been the only brown person in the room for a lot of things. So this was really refreshing that, it started changing a little bit more. But I would say that there was probably someone on the same level as me, and that was exciting to be able to share experiences with each other as well. And you instantly click, I think, as well. And you're kind of almost become friends without knowing you're going to become friends because you just had like this background that you both understood.
Yeah, I mean that the connection with community is very strong, isn't it?
Yeah.
We definitely feel that when we come together as Asian Communications Network, and I think this we've been going for a year, and we've had 10, nearly 100 people in rooms together, and it's never felt uncomfortable. It's felt very, very comfortable, very familiar. So yeah. What does talking about the Asian Communications Network, what does being part of a community like the ACN mean to you personally?
It's really fantastic, actually. And I'm like, the year that I've been a member now, I've really enjoyed it. I've only been to my first in-person event, which was the dinner in August, which was fantastic. Every other event, I'd had a clash, but I love the online factor. I love the WhatsApp, when you can talk to each other and celebrate each other. I think it is about celebrating each other, because if we
Yeah,
don't do it, who's going to do it for us?
exactly.
But it's just the fact there's so many people out there like us, and that momentum is gathering now. You can see it, and I've seen loads of people that I'm like, have you heard of the Asian Commerce Network? Come and join us.
One,
As a big advocate, but also just the conversations that you can have, like the weekend protests and riots
Mhm.
and fascist riots and whatever you want to call them. But the fact that we can actually talk to each other and check in on each other
Yeah,
as well, and being able to ask how people are feeling, because if you can't do that here, where else can you do it, kind of thing. There aren't any other WhatsApp groups that make you feel safe.
exactly.
um
Mm,
and your workplaces might check in on you, but they're also battling with what they need to do and how they're going to do it. I had a board meeting yesterday. I'm a board member of Charity Comms, and we're talking about, like, how do you handle these situations? How do you talk about them without you know feeling that you're being political about
yeah,
it as well?
yeah.
So these sort of networks give you that space and that safe space to do that.
Isn't that true? Isn't that true? And I think, this community was created unintentionally at the time the riots kicked off last year. So feels like we've come full circle, and it's really sad that we are having these conversations in today's day and age, and that we're having to justify our presence in this country. So it is really sad. But as we know, tens of hundreds of thousands don't support that agenda, and they support a diverse community that is Britain. So I suppose we got to remember that as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's in the millions, isn't it? Like, there's more people that don't support them than do, but
Exactly.
unfortunately, they've got like a
Minority that show
louder
up.
voice. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's when you talked about allyship earlier, this is where people need to represent. It's like we can't do it ourselves all the time. It's
Yeah.
got to be allies. It's got to be English people, white people, other communities that stand up for everybody, because there are people being targeted right now, and
Yeah.
we all need to be able to support them.
And it's quite scary. It
Yeah,
really is scary. I mean, the kinds of messages going around in WhatsApp groups, it doesn't, it is terrifying, and it's difficult time for people like us. But again, going back to this time a year ago, think about the counter protesters who came out in the hundreds of thousands to stand up for us. So
yeah,
we know Britain is a welcoming, diverse nation. We just have minorities
yeah,
who speak very loudly and
yeah.
try to
Uh,
represent the majority.
Exactly. And this happened, in my parents came over
Yeah.
in the 70s, and this happened to them in the 70s, and they were looking for rooms. I remember my mum telling me they were looking for rooms, and it said on there, no blacks, no Asians, no
Mm,
Irish even, you know,
mm,
in there. And so you had to go and share flats with different people, different communities, because no one else wanted you. So
yeah,
it's one of these things that I think that keep coming back, and we need to keep
we
pushing
need
it
to
away
keep.
again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I couldn't agree more, and that's why communities like us are important, even in practice. Looking forward in a bit more positive light, if Vishnee, if you could shape the future of communications for the next generation, what would you want it to look like?
I think it's about giving people opportunity and transparency. I think often, especially now, we're looking, so many jobs, and I'm talking about the charity sector as well. They want people with degrees, they want people to have X, Y, and Z before they let them in. It's very Oxbridge. So let's talk about people who don't have those things. Let's talk about people who live in, like, marginalized communities, who can share lived experience. So many times in the Commons Word, you see ad campaigns that are supposedly about, minorities, and they haven't got the context of it at all. And it frustrates me because it's like, did you even ask anybody or check with them that this would be okay and how they would feel about it? Do you test anything? And for me, it's all about saying this next generation should be, bold and ambitious and being able to have their say in how we do things. There's no point talking about what's happening in other countries if you haven't experienced it. There's no point in talking about, um, you know, products and services unless you've experienced it. And that's the way forward.
Yeah. I always say, as communicators, our subject matter expertise is our audience. And if we don't understand our audience, we'll never be able to connect with them. And that does include going and speaking to them. So, not
Yeah.
just making assumptions, no matter what cross section of the audience that you're trying to reach. But it's very important to hear from them as opposed to making judgments about them from our own perspectives. My final question to you is, what's one piece of advice you'd give to someone watching today who feels like they don't belong?
I think go and find your people. It's not about belonging to, like, I don't know, your work or anything like that. It's often other people that you want to connect with and share with. Asian Commons Network, I think, are one of those. But also stand your ground. Be able to be resilient in what you do. Keep trying again. Being able to have confidence in what you do. Know that you're really good at what you do, and don't let other people dissuade you from that. I spent a lot of time in my youth, in my younger days, sort of questioning whether I'm good at something or not. But it's like, no, I am. And you're going to employ me not because I'm brown and you've got a quota to fill, because I'm really good at what I do. That's why you're going to employ me. And it's having that confidence and knowing what you can deliver on that.
That confidence is so important. And I think it's appropriate that I give a little shout out to one of our co-founders at Vita Patel, who obviously is very, very experienced in the world of confidence building. And she's got her new book coming out, which I'm sure we will all purchase. So yeah, if you are feeling a little less confident, if you feel the imposter syndrome, come to communities like ours, speak to practitioners like at Vita, and we absolutely will help you build that confidence back up.
Yeah.
Vishnee, it's been go on.
I was just going to say that Avita actually was my coach as well.
Oh,
So
was she?
she's
There you
definitely
go.
a
Case
little step
study.
from me. Yeah, exactly.
Case study. Wonderful. And Vishnee, so lovely to have you. Before we depart, where can people find you online? Where how can people connect with you?
Probably on LinkedIn is the best way to find me. And just a little plug, I'm launching a podcast next month on the kind of comms community in the charity sector, not-for-profit sector. So if anybody's interested, do contact me on LinkedIn and we'll have a chat.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, that's very exciting. I love
Yes.
it. So we will definitely promote Vishnee's podcast when it's launched, and it will be wonderful with her deep expertise in the charity sector. And maybe she'll talk about the many countries she's been to and the experiences and lessons that she's, learned from there. So that'd be really interesting, I think, to hear as well. Vishnee, thank you so much for joining us today. I know we had a bit of a tech hiccup at the start, but we got there, and I really enjoyed this chat. Lovely to chat with you. And for our viewers, we'll be back next week with another episode of Real Talk, Real Stories. Until then, take care.
Thank you.